Hello, Shadowcat back, and I'm coming at this video raw, because I have other things that I'm supposed to be doing. However, I have been struck with a particular inspiration that needs to be dealt with. I didn't close any windows or anything like that. I didn't prepare my studio at all, so you may hear things like cars in the background, maybe, I don't know, but either way, it is the way it is, because I need to talk about something right now. And I need to do so in the wake of my previous video on Buffalo, Uvalde, and Tulsa? I don't remember my own videos. I do too many of them. And, speaking of videos, I'm supposed to be, editing right now, but I was thinking about this. I couldn't get it out of my head. I gotta talk about it right now. And for this, we're going to need a visual aid, and you're looking at it right now. This image is going to be the only image on the screen the entire time I'm talking right now. And the reason for that is because this is important. Now, if you've ever taken a psychology course in your life, you've probably seen this. If you took it at some point when you were in college and you have since forgotten everything about it, well, here's your refresher, and if you've never seen it before, let me give you a little bit of an explanation, at least as much as I remember from my college days. So, guy named Maslow, he was a psychologist, and he tried to kind of understand what is it that makes a person a person. I mean, what do they need to grow and develop to be a fully fleshed human being? And he tried to determine, some things are very obvious, like down there at the bottom, physiological needs. Obviously, everybody needs those. But what does a good, healthy person need versus what does an unhealthy person have versus what does a troubled person, or what is a troubled person missing? And so over his life, he constructed what he called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Basically saying these are everything that a person needs in life to be a fully fulfilled human being. And this is the order in which you need to have them, because in order to reach the top, you cannot have the ones at the bottom. That being said, I am going to be using this image, and I am going to be using this to discuss gun control, because that's the topic on everyone's minds right now, and especially in the wake of the moronic Prime Minister of Canada coming out and saying that nobody has a right to firearms for self-defense. And in fact, by doing so, he pretty much said that nobody actually has the right to self-defense. Oh, see, there goes a truck. I'm going to show you exactly why he's wrong, and I am going to do so in explicit, grating detail. So buckle up. This is not going to be a pleasant ride. I'm going to go right now to the very bottom row of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And by the way, as you're staring at this, keep in mind that I'm staring at the same thing. So we are both in the same headspace. Physiological needs. If you watch some of my other videos, like my RimWorld series, I've brought up the rule of threes before. So the rule of threes is this. If you are in a survival situation, like let's say you're in a plane crash and you have survived unscathed, okay? Maybe you could parachute into the middle of the Rockies. Maybe you landed in the water and you can swim to safety on an island, whatever. You have the rule of threes. That is, 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without shelter, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. After which, you are dead. I'm going to make that very clear. You are dead. Now granted, there's some wiggle room based on how, tenacious you are as a survivor. But 3 minutes without air is basically brain death, okay? After about a minute without air, you're already looking at brain damage. 3 minutes, you're just done. 3 hours without shelter. Now, I know you're thinking, 3 hours without shelter? I've been outside before. I've been outside all afternoon. I had a cookout just this last weekend. I had people over. We're still alive. No, 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 no. That's not what I mean. I mean, if you are in an extremely cold environment, like it's winter, or you're in the higher or extreme lower latitudes, cold, you need to get out of the cold, okay? If you cannot find shelter from the cold, from the wind and everything else, you will die of hypothermia. The same thing happens if you're in a particularly hot environment. If you're stuck in the desert, or it's, the middle of an open grassland or something in the middle of the summer, if you can't get shelter from the sun, you will die of hyperthermia. You need shelter, and if you cannot get out of the shelter 3 hours in hypothermic temperatures, yes, you will very well be dead. Same thing if you're in a very hot environment. You're going to get you're going to get dehydration really quickly, and if you still can't get out of it and you can't replenish your fluids, yeah, you'll die of hyperthermia. So what else we have under psychological needs? Sleep. If you cannot sleep, you will die. I mean, we have studied this before in some very, very horrific experiments that even I wish I could purge from my memory. Seriously, don't look into some of this stuff if you are weak of constitution. But sleep. If you cannot sleep, you will die. Clothing, it goes under shelter. I mean, if you can't, let's say that you are in an area with a relatively mild climate. If you cannot get clothing, you can still die of hypothermia. And reproduction. Say what you will about what purpose you were put in this world to actually achieve. The fact of the matter is, if you cannot reproduce, then your entire life was pointless. Everything that you have done will not matter, because either no one's going to be around to remember it, no one's going to be around to appreciate it, or if your actual job or your actual pride was in raising the next generation, then you have failed twice. Okay? Physiological needs. This is everything that an animal would need. Okay? Now, animals don't usually wear clothing, but they do have fur. Shave a grizzly bear and see how long it lasts. I guarantee it ain't going to be very long. So, physiological needs. If you do not have one of these, you're probably going to die. Obviously, you're not going to die if you don't reproduce. However, it's still a physiological need. So now we're going to move up to the next one, and this is where we're going to spend a lot of time. And we're going to spend a lot of time on that first one. Personal security. And I suppose in the same vein, I'm also going to put in that last one, property. Why is it that so many people are so adamant about the right of self-defense and the right of property? It's actually very simple. What is food? What is water? What is air? What is shelter? What is clothing? These are property. Okay? If I can deprive you of your water property, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you have a property that has a river or a pond on it. If you have a jug of water and I can take that water away from you and deprive you of water for 3 days, you are dead. The same thing goes for food. If you have an entire store of 3 weeks of food and I take that food away from you and you cannot replenish it, you are dead. The same thing goes to shelter. If you are an Eskimo up in the Yukon, they have Eskimos in the Yukon, don't they? I'm using it for an example anyway. If you have an igloo, and I can bring along a truck and just say, this is my igloo now, and take it away from you, you're dead. This is why property is important. Because if you do not have the right to property, then you do not have right to your physiological needs. It's not about your Xbox okay? It's not about your television. You might think it is, because if somebody comes in and robs your house, they usually don't steal your refrigerator. But what do they steal, and why do they steal it? They steal the expensive property because they can trade it for money, and what do they do with that money? They buy food. They might also buy drugs. But some of that, they're going to buy food. They're going to buy food, they're going to pay for a place to live, they're going to pay for access to water, they're going to buy clothing. See, it all kind of comes back to the same thing. Again, I said I was going to go through this in grating repetition, just so it gets through. The right to property is the right to have your physiological needs met. Now, that I covered property, let's go to personal security, or in other words, the right to self-defense. This one is pretty easy, because if you do not have the right to defend yourself, then you do not have, first off, your right to live at all. If you don't have the right to self-defense and somebody wants to do violence to you, then they're going to. If you're not allowed to do violence back to them, they will kill you. At which point, nothing else matters. You're dead. But even if they don't kill you, if they can simply beat you until you can't fight back, and you can't protect your other physiological needs, maybe they don't kill you. Maybe they break your leg. How are you going to forage for food with a broken leg? If they break your leg, how do you get to water? Maybe they've crushed your windpipe. Now you can't breathe. You no longer have access to your physiological need for air. You're dead. And so if you cannot defend yourself, if you are told or you are restrained from defending yourself, you are being told you do not have a right to your own life. And I cannot stress that enough. If you do not have the right to self-defense, you do not have a right to your own life. You are being told you do not have the right to live. You are being told you have a privilege to live. A privilege that can be revoked the moment that somebody else decides to aggress on it. You will be told by people who are against guns, by people for gun control who say that you don't need a gun to defend yourself, that you should rely on the police. You're saying that my right to live is completely contingent on whether or not somebody else can grant me that privilege. My privilege was already granted by the government, but I need to have the police come in to reaffirm that privilege. A privilege that obviously whoever is trying to harm me disagrees with. And by the way, as they say, when you have only seconds to live, the police are minutes away, yeah, they're not going to get there in time to reestablish your privilege to your own life. It's not going to work. The same thing goes for having a sword, or an axe, or a baseball bat, or a set of brass knuckles, or your own fists. Do not get it twisted. The same people who say that you don't need a gun for self-defense are the same people who would also put you on trial for murder, for beating to death somebody with your bare hands, somebody who had broken into your house with a knife. They would. We've had trials about it. You have a right to personal security. You have a right to self-defense. Because if you don't have a right to self-defense, you don't have a right to any of your other physiological needs. Now that I have hammered that into the ground, and believe me, I'm going to come back with that hammer, and I'm going to hit it again. For just a moment, I want to move up higher into Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Just for a short little jaunt here, okay? We're going to go back up and then we're going to come back down. The next level up, love and belonging. These are psychological needs that we, as social animals, have. And by the way, I'm going to go back down for just a moment and then we're going to come back up, okay? We're going back down to safety needs. Even animals understand that you have a need for personal security, okay? Every animal out there has teeth or claws to use to defend themselves. Even rats, hamsters, gerbils, rabbits, deer, goats, cows, every prey animal on the planet, okay? Every herbivore has teeth and or claws or something else with which to defend themselves, because even prey animals know that they have a right to either fight or flight. Now, most of them would prefer flight first, but a cornered prey animal will fight, and most of them will fight even more viciously than predators. A predator wants a quick takedown because it's safer for the predator. A prey animal just wants to do as much damage as it possibly can before it inevitably loses the fight. And sometimes that inevitable loss isn't so inevitable. Sometimes they can make themselves so much trouble the predator gives up. Going back up. Love and belonging. That is friendship, intimacy, family, and a sense of connection. You don't exactly see a whole lot of that in sharks, obviously. However, look at any of your communal animals. Look at your herd animals. Look at your troop animals. Whether it is a herd of alpaca or it is a troop of chimpanzees, they all have this need to be part of a group. And if you separate them from that group, which we have done and we have studied extensively, separate them from that group, and you can mentally devastate an animal. An animal, okay? It's not even on our level. And even they know that belonging is important. And it's important for a multitude of reasons. It's not just that sense of connection, but because that sense of belonging reinforces those safety needs, which then reinforce those physiological needs. Remember, down in physiological needs, you need sleep. It's kind of hard to sleep when you're always on edge. If you are constantly worried about your safety, you can't sleep. If you can't sleep, you die. Going back up. So, love and belonging. Love is nice, but if you don't belong anywhere, then you're never going to be able to do more than just survive. You are at the point of surviving now, not necessarily thriving. Moving up. Esteem. What do we have under esteem? Well, actually, this is one that we should all be really familiar with right now. Respect, self-esteem, status, recognition, strength, and freedom. This is June. This is Pride Month. Okay? This is an entire month dedicated to that one right there. And, to a lesser extent, love and belonging. Okay? This is an entire month dedicated to those marginalized sexual communities that want to be respected. They want to be recognized. They want to have their status affirmed for them. Because to have those things denied to you, if you are denied respect, status, and recognition, and freedom, then you are stuck at love and belonging. You're part of a family, which is great. However, if you're in the US, why don't you time travel back to, say, the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s, and ask some of those black families what it was like to live pre-civil rights? Now, many of those black families, they had great family integrity, okay? They had strong family ties. But they didn't have freedom. They didn't have recognition. Remember that they were viewed as second-class citizens. It's like, yes, you are free, but we don't grant you the right to vote. We do not recognize your equal rights to whites. So they had to struggle for things like employment. They had to struggle for representation. These things were simply denied to them en masse. Of course, you naturally had some breakouts here and there, but by and large, the entire black community was held down at that third stage. It wasn't until after the Civil Rights Act that they were given that esteem level that they could move up into. Now, granted, some of them have taken it too far since then, but that's a subject for a different video. And then, of course, the next step up is self-actualization. And no, that does not mean that we all have to become Buddhists and find nirvana. You can, but at self-actualization, that is your choice. It is your ability to become a master tradesman, a fully realized homemaker, whatever that you want to do. It is the freedom to become the best you can be. And yeah, I suppose that means that if you want to be the best awful person out there, sure, I mean, knock yourself out. But for most general people, that means, do you wake up in the morning rested and looking forward to the day rather than waking up with this idea that the day is awful, you hate your life, you just want to die? Okay? This is where self-actualization comes in. You have to realize, what are your strengths? What are your limitations? What's making you unhappy? What can you do about it to live your best life? Okay? Top tier. That's what we should all be striving for. It's what I'm striving for when I'm doing these videos. This is what I want to do. It took me a really long time to realize that, I even could do this, and now I want to do something with it. I'm late to the game, but I'm still trying. I can impart some of the things that I'm learning as I'm doing this. But you can't actually be self-actualized if you don't have the respect, status, recognition, and more importantly, the freedom to do so. Same thing where you can't even get those if you don't even have a community who is willing to recognize that. Keep in mind, love and belonging, it says friendship, intimacy, family, and a sense of connection. Those are all true. This also applies to your general community. And I went over in the Buffalo, Uvalde, and Tulsa video how we don't have a sense of community in many places. I mean, do you know your neighbors? I'm going to say it again. Do you know your neighbors? Because a lot of you out there don't. You have no idea who your neighbors are to say anything about, or to say less of your entire community that you live in. What about the city you live in? And I'm guilty of this too. I'm working on it. I now know my neighbors. I know my neighbors on either side of me. I know my neighbors behind me. I don't have any neighbors across the street yet, because there's no one in that house at the moment. But you know what? When that happens, I'm going to walk across the street and I'm going to introduce myself and say, "Hi, I live across the street. How are you? Do you need anything?" Because I'm going to try and build that community. And if I can get them to do the same thing, we're working on building something. So you have to have that love and, more importantly, belonging. If you don't have that, you'll never get to esteem. And by the way, going back down to safety. I told you we were going to get back down here. If you are more worried about holding on to your property, if you are more worried that somebody at any moment could come and take away your resources, you will never have that sense of community. Which, by the way, I bet that applies to almost every single person out there now. Let me ask you this. How do you feel about locking your car? How do you feel about locking your front door? I ask that not because I'm going to tell you not to do those things. Absolutely, lock your car doors, lock your front door, hide your valuables, everything they tell you to do in the parking lot. But the thing is, how many of you have wondered, when you're just sitting there idly, maybe by me saying this, I'm going to make you think about it. Did I lock my car? Or maybe you're going to get up, or if you're listening to this on your phone, maybe you walk to the front door and check it just in case. Do you really feel safe where you are? Do you feel comfortable there? Because if you don't, if there's that little niggling thing in the back of your head that says, hold on, I could be vulnerable right now, you're down here in the safety needs, okay? Now granted, you get to travel up into the rest of those during your day, but for this brief moment, I took you right back down. I did that. And I did that because you don't feel safe. Assuming, of course, that, I actually did trigger that in you. And this is why you need to have the right to self-defense. Maybe you're one of those people, like myself, who lives out in the country and says, the front door's not locked. But you know what? I have the ability to defend myself. And I do. And I am proficient enough with it that I could if I needed to. I don't believe that I should have to. I live in a relatively good area. But the point is, I'm not worried about my safety needs. And because I do not worry about my safety needs, I'm actually making that effort to go up into the belonging part, meet my neighbors, build my community. It's because I have those needs met. And that's why when you hear from somebody in the government that you do not need a gun to defend yourself, what they are saying is, if somebody else has a gun, their gun, which they probably have illegally, trumps your right to your life. It trumps your right to your community. It trumps all of your needs on this list. It trumps your personal security, it trumps your property, your resources, your community, your food, air, water, shelter, clothing, all of it. And think about this. Maybe because you can't defend yourself, you know how they always talk about racists? Well, guess what? There are racists out there. Mind you, they're not the racists they think they're looking at. They look at somebody who says, oh, the actress in Obi-Wan Kenobi is doing a terrible job with the character she's been given. They say, oh, that's racist. No. Let me show you what an actual racist is, okay? An actual racist was that shooter who went to, what was that church? I don't remember off the top of my head. But there was a church down in Georgia, and it was a primarily black church. He opened the door with several guns and just went and started mowing down the people. Why? Because it was a black church. That's a racist. That right there. And why did he do it? Well, number one, he hated the black people there. And in doing so, what did he accomplish? Oh, look right down here. Physiological needs. Reproduction. Okay? He denied them their right to life, and he denied there ever being more of those people. Maybe that was on his mind. I highly doubt it. But even if it wasn't on his mind when he did it, that is what he did. He denied them their right to reproduction, their need for reproduction. I guess I can't really say right to reproduction. You don't actually have that as a right, but it is a need. If you don't have these things, you don't have anything. And that is why I wanted to get into this whole gun control thing as it is. And the reason why I say that is because gun control is a never-ending march. When they say that they just want common sense gun control, How many years have we been hearing this mantra, common sense gun control? We've been hearing it forever. In the US, during the Clinton years, there was the signing of the NFA, the National Firearms Act. That was common sense gun control at the time. It banned explosives, it banned fully automatic or select fire weapons, it banned a whole host of other things that I can't think of off the top of my head, but it said, people don't need these things, these specific things, we're going to make them not applicable to general society. And people said, yes, that's good, common sense gun control. And what did we get later? Well, later on, we had Columbine. And after the Columbine shooting, they said, we need more gun control. We need to ban long coats. We need to ban backpacks from schools. And we need to ban certain firearms. And many places did. And did that fix it? Obviously not, because we're here. And in the years since, we have seen many more shootings, because we keep giving them attention instead of just dealing with them like any other crime. I mean, bit of a tangent here, but if we publicized every single murder on the same scale as every single school or church or mall shooting, do you have any idea how small those shootings would be by comparison? Chicago alone, in a single day, dwarfs almost every single mass shooting that has ever been done. Chicago in a weekend dwarfs almost all the mass shootings done in an entire year. If we were to broadcast all murders the same way we do these mass shootings, they would be a footnote. Okay? They would be a little tiny text in parentheses at the end of the chyron on CNN. Because there's that many. So, the reason why we keep having so many of these mass shootings is because people know that if I go out and I can take out 10 people, I will live in infamy. Alright, tangent over. I'm getting back to this now. You have a natural right. Did I do a video on natural rights? I might have. I don't remember. I think I did. But you have a natural right to defend yourself. And you have a natural right to defend, and let me emphasize that point. Defend yourself with any means necessary. I mean, if that means that someone is attacking you and you have access to a chainsaw and you give them a chainsaw vasectomy, I am right there with you. I will buy you another chainsaw when the government takes it away from you. If someone is attacking you, you have every right to use whatever means possible. That is the natural order of things. Now, of course, that is not going to protect you legally, because when you go to court, and you will go to court over this, they are going to say, was the response proportional? And I can't help you with that. I mean, laws and logic do not go hand in hand. The point is that you have a right to defend yourself with whatever tools you have available. And I stress defend because if your idea of defending yourself says that you need to go out and destroy something before it can hurt you, you're not defending, you're attacking. And while I get the logic of it, okay, I fully understand that. As both a games player, as a tactical game player, as a strategic game player, I understand the logic behind it. That's not the world we live in. So, I agree that you should be able to defend yourself with anything available. Because to take that away from you is to leave you vulnerable to having everything else taken from you. And you have many people that are talking about this right now. They'll tell you, once the government can take away your ability to defend yourself, then the government can take everything from you. But it's not just the government. No. I mean, if the government came out and said that all bears must be declawed, the government goes out and surgically removes all claws from all bears. Well, is the government the one's going to come out and kill all those bears? No, it's going to be every single other animal out there once they realize that bears no longer have claws. Similarly, when the government comes through and disarms you of all of your firearms, and by the way, once they do that, they will disarm you of everything else. Most places have already made it illegal to carry a sword. Did you know that? Think about it. Go look up your own local laws, your municipal laws, city laws, state laws, whatever. Most places have already made it illegal to carry a sword. So even when you're disarmed of your firearms, if you're thinking of going back to medieval times and say, well, I guess since we no longer have firearms, we'll go back to the previous black powder days and I'll just carry a side sword or a rapier. Nope. Those are already illegal. By the way, even if you wanted to carry a knife, most places have made fixed knives. That is to say, they don't fold. They've made fixed knives illegal. And for that matter, even if it does fold, if it is a gravity knife, a balisong, otherwise known as a butterfly knife, or a switchblade, those are also illegal in most places. You have already lost those. You cannot carry a knife, you cannot carry a dirk, you cannot carry a dagger, a sword, an axe, a mace, a warhammer. You cannot carry a hammer, a halberd, a pike, a spear. I dare say you might not even be able to carry a staff. Obviously, most people can get away with a walking cane, but if you're feeling particularly brave, why don't you go out and get an actual staff? Just, a 6-foot staff of a sturdy wood, and try walking around with it. Because I would wager, not much because I don't have a whole lot of money, but I would wager that at some point, a cop may very well stop you and say, why do you have that? Why do you need it? Because that is how far your right to defend yourself has already been infringed. There's a reason why there are so many places right now who are coming out with constitutional carry, and they are already coming out and saying, we're ditching the federal gun laws. And the reason why is, as they keep pushing for more and more gun control, many states are now realizing, and many people are realizing along with them, that the opposite of total control isn't less. The opposite of total control is none. And right now, as we have seen from Canada, as we have seen from places over in Europe, as we are seeing in the United States under the Democrat administration, their goal is the complete eradication, either entirely, as in like constitutional amendment, or practically through inches, the complete obliteration and denunciation of the Second Amendment and your right to self-defense. Now, the Second Amendment is not actually your right to self-defense. It is your right to defend yourself against the government. But if you can defend yourself against the government, you can defend yourself against criminals. By taking away one, you take away the other. And they know that. And don't ever let them convince you that they don't know that. They do. You might think they're stupid. They're not stupid. They are not. And you assuming that they are is giving them entirely too much credit, and it is letting them see just how naive you are. I've said it before in a previous video, we are well into the time where we stop attributing their motives to incompetence rather than malice. It's malice at this point. They know what they're doing. And they want to take away your right to defend yourself. They've already taken away 9 out of 10 of your ways to defend yourself. They just need the last one. And once it's gone, this grid right here, or not this grid, this pyramid, okay? It's gone. Okay? Without that personal security, you will never even have the option of love and belonging, esteem, and self-actualization, okay? You will never have those options because your entire life will be spent under those safety needs trying to protect your resources. And by the way, those resources are your physiological needs. Your entire time will be spent trying to either gain or protect or replace those resources. Because without those resources, without your property, without your physiological needs, you cease to exist. And make no mistake, there are people out there whose intention is exactly this. And I need people to understand this. It's not about Democrat or Republican necessarily. It's not about right or left. What it is there are people out there who want to take these things away from you. It's just a coincidence that they happen to be all on the left-wing side of the spectrum. And by the way, there are some of those people on the left who are hiding on the right. They may call themselves Republicans, they may call themselves conservatives, regardless of what they call themselves, regardless of what country it is, actions speak louder than words. And if they're coming out in support of taking away your right to defend yourself, they're showing who they really are. Believe them when they show you who they really are, okay? Don't question it. Don't make excuses for it. When somebody tells you that they mean you harm, you take them at their word. And they do mean you harm. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully, this opens your eyes a little bit to something. I suspect that many people who will actually see this will probably already agree with me. More importantly, if you already agree with me, share this with somebody who you're arguing with, okay? Sit down with them while you're playing Call of Duty or whatever. Just turn this on in the background. After all, you don't need to listen to Call of Duty anyway. It's just guns. Play this for them. Have a discussion. That's how we change things. Have that discussion. So I'm going to take that break now. If you enjoyed this, or even if you didn't enjoy this, because let's face it, why would you enjoy this? But if you listen through it and you might want to hear more, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you hear for every video when they come out. Again, if you know somebody who needs to hear this, if you know somebody who is asking you, why do you think that we need to have guns? Why do you think that we need to have this right to self-defense? Share this video with them, okay? This is why. This is why you need the right to self-defense, and this is why you need the means to self-defense. Share it. Then come back, leave a like. For me, the likes help. I mean, you don't need to, but I like to have the likes. Leave a comment down below with your thoughts. I respond to every comment. And I will see you next time for the next message. And until then, take care.